Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here with day 2 of our journey into Nick's spoilers. So I'm sorry I'm outside, so we're going to have some natural sounds, maybe some birds chirping as we talk about some awesome cards, and hopefully it won't interfere with what's going on, starting off with Godsend. Dun 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 dun. We have finally the God Weapon, and of course it's mythic. I wish it wasn't mythic, but it makes sense that it is because flavor. 1 and 2 white for legendary artifact equipment that is not an enchantment because it won't fit on the text line, which we talked about already in Theros. Equipped creature gets 3/3. Whenever a creature blocks or becomes blocked by one or more creatures, you may exile one of those creatures. Wow, that's a really powerful ability right there. I like it because it works really well with things like Brimaz. The problem is it does cost 3, so it's kind of Brimaz you want it to be hitting the table turn 3, not Godsend, which is going to make it fight for that slot. Godsend is able to exile one of those creatures. I don't quite know if this means target. If it means target, it's not quite as good as I would think, but if it doesn't mean target, it's redonkulous because it'll kill hexproof. You may exile one of those creatures. That wording is a little strange. It could just be because they want to have one or more creatures as a possibility because of double blocking or triple blocking, etc. However, it's just a little awkward wording, so if you guys know the rules for that, put it down below and let us know. But either way, it's still an excellent ability because it's an exile effect. Most importantly, opponents can't cast cards with the same name as cards exiled with Godsend. And that's really important in Standard, which is usually, there's plenty of cards that have 3 or 4 ofs in decks. That really matters. You get rid of one, boom, they're done for the rest of the, presumably for the rest of the game while this is in play. I guess that's probably the problem, is that it's it has to be in play. But still, it's a legendary artifact equipment. Flavor-wise, hits it out of the park. The abilities are really solid. It does cost 3 to equip and 3 to cast, which is very expensive, and I don't think it's going to fit the curve. I wonder what deck in Standard this could possibly fit in. Maybe White Weenies? I don't really know where it could work really well. It might be something as a sideboard card in Mirrors, maybe for control Mirrors, because it would prevent the opponent's single or 2 creatures from holding the board just by exiling them, because it's before combat damage is dealt. And an EDH Commander, I think it's decent. It's going to need the right deck to work, and it doesn't put your opponent's stuff commander-wise exiled. It only exiles. It only puts them back in the command zone. So I don't really know how relevant that ability is. And of course, the second ability doesn't really matter in EDH Commander unless you're running a large multiplayer game and somehow everyone's using the same good stuff cards. Most of the time, it's going to be its first 2 abilities that matter, and I think it's decent. It's not a sword. It's not Jete, or it's probably close to Jete in terms of multiplayer EDH relevance. Really cool card. I want the foil. The flavor is great. I don't quite know how it's going to make an impact. Maybe you guys have some thoughts. Then we have Doomwake Giant, so this is showing that we have a cycle of Constellation creature rares. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get 1/1/- until end of turn. 4/6 for 5 is not bad. Of course, in Limited, this card's going to be amazing in Limited. I don't quite know how it's going to work in Standard. I think it would have had a better shot in Standard if it was 4 mana for a 4/5 or even a 3/5 maybe, because its ability is really, really good. We've had cards in the past that give your opponents 1/1/- on their creatures, and that's really useful against Weenies. It also gives you the full advantage because it doesn't give all creatures, it just gives your opponents. I like it. I'm sure it can stack well. I just don't quite know where it can fit in. Maybe Esper Control, possibly. It's really going to be a great Limited card, I think, is where it's going to make its biggest mark. 3 cards on the Mothership. Dictative Crew Fix. 3 for a flash card. This is another cycle. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Okay, so it's kind of like a Howling Mine effect, which I like Howling Mines, so that's pretty cool. I don't quite know how relevant it's going to be, but it is cool, and in EDH Commander, I'm sure there will be decks that want another Howling Mine card, so here we go. Great card. Underworld Coinsmith, 2 for a 2/2 Constellation. That's you gain 1 life. Okay. 2, pay 1 life, each opponent lose 1 life. So this is long-term messing around. It definitely fits the Orzhov theme in terms of Orzhov, but I don't quite know where it's going to see play. It's not that great. Sadly, it's gorgeous, and I'm sure in foil it's going to be absolutely stunning. So, nah. Dictate of the Twin Gods, another flash enchantment. 5 mana. If a source would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage. Good for aggro decks. I think it's a little outcosted though, because it's a universal effect. It's everyone's. Honestly, there are cards that are cheaper even than this that allow for double damage effects. So why would be, I guess because of the flash that it's a combat trick, but it costs 5 mana. I don't quite know where this could possibly fit in. if it was going to be a universal effect, why didn't they make it like 3, maybe 4 mana? Maybe because the flash, they're concerned about it. I don't know, but I think the 5 mana really hurts it. Of course, in EDH Commander, there are decks that want this kind of effect. It'll work well in, but I don't quite see it seeing use really anywhere else because it's just too overcosted for what it is, I think. Then we have, next up, Spawn of Thraxus, our awesome-looking dragon, sadly not awesome dragon, 7 for a 5/5 flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of mountains you control. So it's a kind of a finisher for mono red, and I think it works well like Fanatic of Mogus in being equally ridiculous in mono red. The problem is that I think it's a little overcosted. It could be the final card in a mono red deck, a finisher card, but without massive ramp, I would have had this card. Honestly, this could have been 5 for a 4/4 or 6 for a 5/5. I think 7 for a 5/5 puts it below a curve. And for limited, of course, it's a huge bomb, but it will require you to be seriously invested in red, which will make it tough to really splash and work with. So my guess is this is kind of one of those intro pack cards. It's very awesome. The art is very awesome. The card itself, I think, is a little left to be desired. Dawnbringer Chariots, showing us why Seraph of Dawn was ridiculously pushed, which that was a common, this is a rare. 4 for a 2/4 flying lifelink. Okay, so it has, Seraph of Dawn, why doesn't it go? Seraph of Dawn has the same ability, so the only difference here is the heroic ability, which is heroic, put a 1/1 counter on it. So it's a rare, but it scales, versus a common that has almost the same thing. I also wish they had more variety in the heroic. Of course, in limited, it's going to be pretty decent, if not outright awesome in the right heroic build deck. I don't quite see it being powerful enough for a standard environment, personally. Then we have, next up, Squelching Leeches, Grossness, 4 for a star. Power toughness is equal to the number of swamps you control, so for those of you who are familiar with Nightmare, it's pretty much a Nightmare without flying, but it does cost 2 less. I think it's not as good as Desecration Demon. If Mono Black Devotion remains a thing, it could maybe see play after Desecration Demon rotates. My guess is something else is going to fill the slot. It's going to be a very, very good limited card if you're running 1 to 2 colors, but other than that, I don't really see it making much of a splash. Then we have Scourge of the Fleets. This card is 7 for a 6/6. Whenever it enters the battlefield, each creature your opponent controls a toughness X or less for X the number of islands you control. Now this is a card I can get behind. It's a very one-sided board sweeper. 7 for a 6/6, I think, is of course in limited ridiculous. In EDH Commander, this card will be very fun for mono blue. I think that's the main place it'll see play. It's fun. The flavor is ridiculously awesome. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Really cool. And last up, we have Keranos, God of Storms. 5 for a 6/5 indestructible. Devotion, same as before. It looks really amazing in the frame. The full-out art looked a little dark. It looks fantastic as a card. Reveal the first card you draw on each of your turns. Whenever you reveal a land card, you draw a card. Whenever you reveal a non-land card, deals 3 damage. So either it's a draw engine, or you have a lightning bolt every single turn. This is the perfect end of the curve for a lot of decks that are going on now. I think it also will make certain control decks very viable because it'll give them that control and aggro decks, because it'll give them that 5 cost card, which 6/5. I don't know if it'll necessarily be active, but even just thinking as an enchantment, it throws bolts every turn, which could potentially win the game in a long drawn out control matchup, or it'll give you card draw advantage, which you also need in a long control matchup. It'll also potentially help with aggro when you're running out of cards to play and you're running out of your aggro curve. Your opponent held you off that long, he hits play and will finish him off. I think he's fantastic. Of course, in EDH Commander, he's not quite as good because Lightning Bolt isn't all that great, especially in multiplayer, and the card draw engine is fine, but you do have to reveal your cards, so it's kind of a loss too. I don't think he's very awesome in EDH Commander, personally. I mean, I'm sure he'll fit into certain decks. He's decent, but I don't see him being utterly fantastic. I see him being really strong in Standard. I do think he has a shot of being a 1 or 2 of in the right decks. Maybe a sideboard card. My guess is 1 or 2 of in the main decks. And of course in Limited, absolutely insane, as we expected. So those are my thoughts of a lot of spoilers, and I'll be keeping you guys updated with them every day that they come out. So if you guys enjoyed the video, tap the like button and go down and put some comments in the description. If you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe for more spoilers coming to you regularly. And as always, Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.